Hello and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service-based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your host, your Chaos to Clarity business mentor, and your human design specialist. And today I am so excited to have Lilian Sue on the podcast with me. So Lilian, if you could please take it away and share with us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Maggie. I am a PR coach and publicist. And what I say is that I am in the storytelling and relationship building business. What do I mean by that? I empower creative entrepreneurs, authors, and coaches to unlock the superpowers behind their stories in order to gain the confidence to push past the limiting beliefs of fear, anxiety, imposter syndrome in order to harness the power of PR to build the relationships that they need to achieve their goals. So I really work with my clients to provide them that education, the personalized support and guidance, as well as the tools and resources to get them empowered to use PR to build those powerful relationships and to gain trust and credibility with their trusted audiences. And how I do that primarily is through one-on-one coaching. So I sit down with my client and we really go through where their mindset is in that particular point in time. How do you feel about getting out there and sharing your story? If there is fear coming up for you or anxiety coming up for you, what's the root cause of that? Where is that coming from? How can we better recognize the things that will trigger those feelings in you so that we can build healthier coping mechanisms to help you push past them? And then on the strategy part, it's really about giving them that personalized support, helping them brainstorm, and the tools and resources to really get their story and the message of who they are in front of the right audiences and how to keep that going for them in a consistent and sustainable way. I'm a huge proponent with within my own business and for my clients about prioritizing your own energy. So whenever I talk to my clients about PR, marketing, business, it's never about things being a quick fix. It's never about jam packing so many different activities into a short period of time. It's really about looking at the long-term sustainable big picture on with everything else you have going on in your life. Some of my clients have other full-time jobs, they have kids, pets, they're taking care of their parents, whatever it is. How can we make this manageable for you in ways that you can still grow, but prioritize your energy so you're not burnt out and crashing and not feeling like this isn't for me because I can't fit it into my life.
Yeah, I love all that so much. And I think it's so important to just remember that your energy is so important, especially when it comes to running a business, right? Like being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. So I love all of that. And as you were talking, I was thinking what a perfect interview to have today because I've been talking a lot about conversations and lead generation in my own copy and with my clients. It's been a very hot topic lately. So I'm curious, it sounds like you help people have conversations to grow their business, whether that's through lead gen or what so on and so forth. I'm curious, how has having conversations helped your business? Like, what did that look like for you as you were growing your business? How did conversations kind of come to the forefront for you?
Well, I started my business not on the PR side, but on the, just like you, the copywriting and the social media strategy side, primarily because I was driven by a love of storytelling. I've been a writer my entire life. My original career path was to be a novelist, but this was pre self-publishing. Realized pretty quickly I probably couldn't make a living that way. So
Yeah.
I thought, how about I build a business on helping other people get their stories out there? And
Yeah.
the really funny thing is, it probably took me over 10 years to really sit down with myself and go, okay, um, here's the block that I'm having. Here's the problem, because sharing the testimonials and the happy customer reviews and everything is great. People can see what sort of results I can get. What that doesn't tell them is, who am I? What can they actually expect when they start working with me? So
Hmm.
I had to enlist in the help of my mindset coach to help me get past those mindset blocks myself, and to sit there and realize that, hey, if I'm going to be telling my clients to walk the walk, I have to do the same, otherwise I'm a hypocrite. And I realized that what people really wanted to know was what made me tick,
Hmm.
what makes the way I do public relations different from everybody else, and why did I choose to do it that way. So I started sharing my story of just the mindset blocks that I came up against, how I had to learn how to let go of the need for control. And
Yeah.
once I conceded that, the world just opened up. I had so much more freedom. It was
Hmm.
like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I thought, this is the type of thing I really want to talk to my clients about, because I understand the power of it. I've been through it myself. And it really taught me that at the end of the day, especially in business, people buy from people. People trust people, right?
Yep.
Not the corporate logo or,
Right.
so it really comes down to, because let's be honest, the marketplace, the more people go online, the more we have online presences, online stores, all of this kind of thing. There's a lot of people that do what we do
Yeah.
in every sector and every industry. So, what's going to make you stand out is to have that confidence to be able to stand up and go, this is what I stand for. This
Hmm.
is why I do what I do and how I do it. And these are the reasons why I chose to do it this way. And for me, it's a lot more powerful than just saying, hey, I offer public relations. Hey, I'm a mindset coach. Hey, I offer, I'm an entrepreneur that is a Reiki practitioner, or I'm like a hypnotist or whatever. It is really about, at the heart of things, how can you connect with people that are looking for help, people who need that personalized guidance to help solve whatever problem they're having. And how can you meet them where they're at and say to them, hey, it's okay. I'm with you. I understand what you're going through because I've been there myself.
Hmm. Yeah, and like you brought up the power of storytelling and sharing, and I think that is it brings the human back to your business, right? You then become so much more relatable because people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're a real person. You've gone through the things, you've faced all this stuff and you've come out on the other side." And like it just creates such a beautiful connection. And you're right, as more people come online, and I would even argue that this has just kind of always been the way, right? Like where when you want to buy something, you're probably going to go to someone you trust and you're going to say, "Hey, I want to buy a new coffee maker. I want to invest in, I don't know, whatever. I want to do this thing." You're going to go to someone else and say, "Hey, what do you recommend?" And in a digital world, right, where we have like where Facebook, Instagram, like social media is now the new kind of like town square. Well, you have unlimited access really to go and say, okay, I'm looking for a mindset coach. I'm going to start typing that stuff into social media. And then they might come across your profile and they're going to go, oh, wow, I resonate with what she's talking about. Oh my gosh, yes, I am now developing that rapport, the no like trust factors there, right? And you can move that into that that next level conversation of like, hey, here's my story. And now that you're invested, like, here's what I do. Here's how I can help you. And I think that's really, it's such a cool thing to kind of come out of this like digital era that we're in.
Yeah, it's definitely there is power in fostering engagement and genuine, authentic connections across geographical boundaries that we couldn't have done 25, 30, 35 years ago. I've
Yeah,
certainly seen that change in my lifetime. But there's also, because there's so many more options
right.
for people, then it becomes at some point, when does you talking about yourself become not enough? And that's the
Right.
reason why I work with my clients on PR, because PR takes that up another level. You're not just having regular folks recommend you. You
Hmm.
now have these reputable podcasts, media outlets, writers, journalists who have spent years themselves cultivating their reputations as trusted voices within that industry, and their audiences know this, right? That,
Right.
I go to this podcast for certain information in tech, certain information in self-care, whatever. And when you build a relationship with that particular media outlet, what happens is your voice is on their platform.
Hmm.
So they are then the conduit, the shortcut for you to share your content and more about who you are on their platforms. Their audience sees that, they see you, they hear things directly from you on this platform they already trust. And that's when they say, oh, hey, maybe I should go check them out. Maybe I should sign up for their newsletter. Maybe I should book a call, see if, their service is right for me. And
Yeah.
that is really that super important, vital piece that I think so many entrepreneurs are missing today. And it's one of the reasons why, I don't know if you can see behind me here, the virtual screen with my book. It's one of the reasons why I wrote The Powerful Publicity Prescription, is to really empower and motivate entrepreneurs and coaches to take action on their strategies using PR to get out there, to basically take the foundations that they've built with their websites, with social media, with email marketing, and take that up another level to
Hmm.
continue to expand on their audiences, to get out there and share their stories, and to build those powerful relationships and partnerships, right? That will often give them a stage to talk about their story, give them a platform to share, this is why I did this, talk about their crossroads moments in their businesses, the epiphanies they've had, what they've learned. These are all things that audiences gravitate towards, because they're
Yeah.
like, finding products is easy, right? You
Right.
can compare features, colors, price point, whatever. But at some point, when you go a little deeper than that, what's the human story? What makes
Hmm.
this company or this person or this entrepreneur worth supporting over somebody else who does exactly the same thing. And it's like what you said, whose content is resonating with you, whose
Right.
story is resonating with you. And, for me, just like it is for a lot of my clients before, when it was a block for me, I said, I can never get out there and show people what it is that I do that's different if I'm not willing to tell them why, because it's not even about the service anymore. It's about, why do I believe in this?
Mm-hmm.
What is my experience with this that's going to allow you to trust me? And who am I as a person that's going to give you an inside look on what you can expect when we work together?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I really love that point you make. And I know a lot of my clients are in the stage where they are, either pivoting or they're introducing people to who they are. And so this like storytelling that you're talking about, I think is so powerful for my audience right now because it really can showcase just how valuable your story is, even though you're like, oh, well, okay, this was my experience. But like people resonate with that I know I do. Like I love a good story. Like I love a good comeback story. I love it when people like, which is also why like I love podcasting for that reason. I get to hear so many people's stories. And then I get to share their stories with the world. And I think that is such a cool, like, for me, it's just so like I feel so lucky to be able to do this. And you were talking about mindset a little bit
Mhm.
and mindset alignment. And I'm curious, could you share um like a time that comes to mind where you were wanting to or needed to align your mindset to kind of break through a plateau. So I'm curious, like, what that looked like, the mindset shifts that you had to take in order to, like, whether that was, like a first client or the 100th client or like wherever you are in that journey, right? Like, what was the plateau that you kind of came up against? And with all the mindset work that you do that you had to work through that now you can help coach your clients through?
Um, well, I'll go back to when I talked about like recognizing, it took me years, but I eventually recognized that, hey, um, I'm not driving the bus here. My anxiety is driving the bus. And not only is my anxiety driving the bus, it's fueling my chronic illness.
Mm.
Like I would have
Mhm.
flare-ups and lose sleep in the middle of the night. And it took me such a long time to understand why,
Mhm.
to understand that correlation there. And I realized that, I was trying to hang on with an iron grip onto everything that I put out there,
Yeah.
obsessively checking what the responses were, what the results were, if people were engaging. If they weren't, I'd go down a downward spiral. And I see this a lot in my audience, right? So it's like looking into a mirror a lot of the time.
Yep.
So I was going through that, and then it was like, this isn't fun. This is
Right.
not bringing me joy. I'm not working with the right kinds of clients because my mindset isn't ready. I'm drawing in people who aren't actually ready.
Mhm.
There's a lot of there's gaps in their education on whether or not they even understand what PR is, let
Right.
alone the fact that they may not even be ready to launch anything. Like they may not even be ready for it. So I was inviting a lot of that into my life. And I had to come to the realization of like, okay, well, let me think about this for a second. What is the worst thing that could happen if I lost control of something?
Mhm.
If one day I woke up and decided I'm not going to obsess anymore about whether or not people are engaging with or responding to my content. I'm just going to put it out there and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
And in working with my mindset coach, I recognized that, hey, this fear of a loss of control for me actually didn't start yesterday. Like it came from my childhood. And the reason it did was because I didn't have control in my childhood. I was
Mm-hmm.
being controlled, I was being dictated to. And my life at that particular point in time for the first 10 years of my life was all about you have to live your life in accordance to someone else's
Mm. Yeah. Right.
desires for you and record, and someone else's plans for you. And I had to go through a period of months where I had to learn how to break myself out of that by first recognizing that I did what I needed to do at that point in time with the limited skills and knowledge that I had to survive,
Mm-hmm.
number one. And number two, I had to also be able to let go of that, to forgive myself. And once I started doing that, it's become so much easier for me to recognize where a lot of my clients' limiting beliefs come from.
Mm,
When
yeah.
they get triggered by certain things, it's like where, like, okay, oh, I see where that's coming from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because I don't consider myself, I would never brand myself as a clinical psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinical counselor of any kind. But in doing a lot of my own mindset work and in working with my clients on this level, you tend to recognize patterns now,
Yeah.
and you tend to sort of see it's really interesting sometimes. It's basically your own study in psychology
Right.
of where someone's perspective is coming from and why they're stuck versus someone else who can see that they're stuck and they need help, right?
Right.
So to sort of, you gradually become better at being able to recognize where someone's coming from, whether or not they recognize that they need help and that they're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like anything else, these epiphanies are not something that you can drag somebody kicking and screaming into.
Right.
They have to be ready for it themselves in the sense that they recognize, like, hey, this doesn't feel good. I'm tired of the hamster wheel. Where can I go to get some help in ways that is going to resonate with me? Because that was precisely where I had to get to in my business before it was like, okay, now I'm ready to invest in that outside help that's going to help me because I'm tired of living this
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I mean, even, I'm not necessarily a mindset coach, but I have noticed similar patterns showing up in my own coaching business, right? Where the limiting beliefs or like XYZ is happening. Okay, it's probably some sort of this kind of belief that you've got, whether you like actively realize it or whether it's kind of playing on default, right? Where it's that like subconscious thought of, like, oh, no one wants what I have or whatever that thing is. It is really fascinating to me to learn these things and then see that show up in people. And, when they really are ready to make that change, for them to have that aha moment of, oh, wow. And then for them to go, oh, I, I have the power to change. I have the power to change. I can do this. I think that's is so cool to see that in people, especially when they're in those like level up moments, right? When it comes and people are like, "Okay, I'm at this plateau and I need help." And then, you kind of bust through the gates on that limiting belief and they're like, "Oh, wow. Oh my gosh." Yeah, it's just so cool. So I'm curious, what's something that you do, and this could be for like mindset or just, you know, really how any way you kind of reset or recharge during intense periods in your business, right? Like when you're in a growth period and you're like, okay, I'm holding on for the ride because like we're growing. What is what are some of like your rest or recharge? Like how do you rest and recharge in that kind of period?
I tend to lean into like guided meditation, some self hypnosis tracks that my mindset coach put together for me just to kind of refocus and reset. I tend to listen to quite a few podcasts. Some of the interview podcasts that I love, I don't know if you know Lewis Howes' School of Greatness.
Yeah. Yep. Love
He's a
that one.
fantastic interviewer, and there
Yeah.
have been quite a few episodes. One of the few I always go back to is the one that he did with Kobe Bryant before we lost him,
Yeah.
and how Kobe talks a lot about, even if you win a game, he always used to go back and watch tape because he said there's always things that you can improve on. And if
Right.
you lose a game, it's not about the failure. It's about, what did I do well? What didn't work? How can I use that as fuel to continue to grow and to learn from it? And these
Hmm.
are things that I don't think that we, in general, as a society, do quite enough of, right?
Right.
Because we're so focused on being perfect, right?
Hmm.
On delivering things and being perfect. And if that doesn't happen, then we tend to beat ourselves up, and we're not maybe I'm not meant to do this, and you get into a bit of a spiral on it. And a lot of the podcast interviews I've listened to is just like, no, it's really about retraining your perspective to
Hmm.
look at it from a standpoint of, what is a way that I can continue to add value, that I continue to step up, do my thing, and focus on what it is that I'm trying to impart to people, what I'm trying to teach them, as opposed to focusing on when I screw up.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, when you're doing something, like I've done quite a few webinar presentations now over the years, if you stumble over your words, let's say, unless you call attention to that, people aren't going to focus on it,
Oh, totally. Totally.
right?
Yeah.
So, it really comes back down to, what am I doing for me in the present day on a daily basis to move the needle a little bit forward, to make that positive impact with someone.
Hmm.
And for me, it's, hey, if I do that one thing a day, I feel great. I feel accomplished. I feel satisfied. I don't feel the need to cross items off my to-do list that's a mile long, right?
Right.
Because it's more about, how can you build consistency and sustainability in the habits that you have on a daily basis, as opposed to making these huge leaps and then burning out and going, wow, now I can't move for,
Right.
a couple of months because
Yeah.
I've just pushed myself so hard. So I've always been cognizant of recognizing, where am I at energy wise today? Like, did I sleep well the night before? If I didn't, can I block off a chunk of time today to take a nap? Can I do other things that are going to help me recharge? Because every day is different, right?
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
have to give yourself grace and give yourself that flexibility to approach every day as its own entity, because that's all we have.
Right.
Yesterday's in the history books, tomorrow's not a guarantee. So
Hmm.
while we are working towards tomorrow and building those building blocks, all we have control over is today,
Right.
on what those building blocks look like today and how you can move the needle forward today. So I just really try to focus on, where am I at on a daily basis? And if there's something going on, like I said, if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, can I course correct that over the course of the day so that I still finish strong, I still finish feeling good, and I can go into the next day and reset.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. And I think, something I also talk a lot about here on the podcast, but to my clients as well in networking circles, a lot of people talk about consistency. And I think we're still in this shift of consistency equals hustle. And I know that consistency does not equal hustle. It kind of did back in, like the early mid 2000s and even in the 2010s. I feel like so many people were like, yeah, I'm out here with my 12 side hustles. I've got this going on, blah, blah, blah. And now I feel like there's been a big shift in the world, or at least the people who I am in contact with, where it's like, no, consistency doesn't have to equal hustle. But if I can be consistent in my mindset, in, like daily routines, whether that's going for a 5 minute walk around the block, or maybe it's an hour yoga class, or I'm going to sit and read for 5 minutes, or whatever that is. And then I'm going to, here are my business tasks, right? Like, here are my top 3 things that I want to do today. Flexing that consistency muscle is so much more important than like, I have a to-do list that's 5 miles long, and if I don't get it done, I'm going to be really mad at myself, right? Leaning into consistency through the lens of like, how can I fill my cup and make sure that I feel fulfilled so that I can then pour into other people's cup. And I know, with a lot of mindset work, that also comes in where when you work on your mindset and work on it first, then you have the capacity to connect with others, to help others, to show them that, like, yeah, that's just a thought. And do you want to change it? Okay, let's change that. Let's shift that.
Exactly. So much of what I talk to my clients about is that what you're feeling right now is valid, but it's the outcome of this feeling is not set in stone.
Right.
Just because you're feeling this right now does not mean that, hey, this is the only outcome available to you, that it's always going to be negative. You're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the negative possible outcomes. It's You can shift your perspective to focus on the positive side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like you said, where when you're talking about consistency not equaling hustling anymore, it's really about how can you build those healthy habits in life and in business that is going to help you move the needle forward. Because I think so much of what we have on our to-do lists are things that aren't urgent.
Yes.
Like if you
Yeah.
worked on it tomorrow as opposed to today, that's not going to set you behind any.
Right. Right.
Instead, what we should be looking at is, when do I have absolute commitments that I can't miss, right? Like appointments, meetings, events, what have you. And then how do you build consistency around those things
Mm-hmm.
in ways that will still work for you, right?
Right.
And sometimes that means you spend half an hour on a particular task, no distractions, nothing else. You're not working on 5 different things in that half an hour. It's just that one thing. And once you get to a certain point on that, then you can move on to something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're still moving the needle, you're still making progress. I think as a society, particularly for entrepreneurs and particularly for women in business, we get really obsessed with the idea of getting to the finish line,
Yes.
that
Yes.
like if it's done, like then hey, I'm accomplished, I'm productive. If I don't get it to the finish line, then somehow I'm not any of these things, when in reality it's comes down to, it's like, if you don't have a deadline on something, then you can take your time.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you have a deadline on something, and I've worked with a lot of clients like this, they get obsessive over something not being perfect by the time it meets the deadline. So they're cramming frantically to try and make corrections and all of this kind of thing. And I have to remind them perfection doesn't exist.
Right.
At
Right.
some point, what we want to do is at the sum of all these parts, like whatever it is you're getting ready for, whether it's an interview, whether you are building a slide deck for your first presentation, whatever it is, at some point you have to go, do I have the key concepts that I want to talk about in this? And if
Mm-hmm.
that's the case, maybe the graphics aren't perfect. Maybe you had a spelling mistake or something you overlooked. But by and large, the ultimate focus of what you want this to be on, like, can I still impart this wisdom and this knowledge to my audience? So long as you have that, it doesn't matter if there's like mistakes in your graphics. It
Right.
doesn't matter even if something happens and it turns out you can't share that slide deck, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
have to keep going.
Right.
And I think it's that is, developing consistency sustainably is also about resilience. How can
Mm.
you continue to roll with the punches and just focus ultimately on, no matter what's going on around you or how chaotic it is, how can you focus on ultimately what can I control in this moment, and how can I keep the ball rolling and focus on my ultimate goal instead of all of the distractions around.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think I loved what you said, when you said developing resilience. I think that is absolutely such a good way to put this, right? Because you are developing resilience. Your uh, consistency, I would say, is more equal to resilience, right? How can you show up? How do you do, like, what are these things you want to do? How can you show up? And, instead of just being the person who's like, I got to cross this and this and this off the list. I've got to get to the finish line. Like, that's not like the end game that we're going for, right? Like I actually recently, instead of writing a to-do list, I now call it my results list, right? So I'll write my results list and I'll put the things that I want to get done the most up at the top, or the things that I need that need more attention or my attention right away. I put those up at the top. And then that's how I go about my day, right? Like I know the 2 to 3 things that like my business needs every day. And then I also have that results list. And instead of calling it a to-do list and switching my verbiage to results, it's now really allowed me to see, oh my gosh, I get so much done during the day. Like there are so many things that I am crossing off this list. I feel so good about myself. And I think that really then shows in your business, right? Your presence online, your energy online, or wherever you're, connecting with your clients. Because now you're like, yeah, dang, I am on it, I'm getting results. And that then gives your brain like, oh, you're getting results. This business is working. Keep going, right? So it gets into that, like those limiting beliefs, all of that, like, oh, I've connected with these people and here's this and there's the results and this is what I was looking for. Um, and I think that's just such a cool way to, go about running a business, to be able to develop resiliency, to lean into consistency. And, I know some people are like, oh, but I'm creative. And so I'm also a photographer. And a lot of people have asked me, like, you've had a photography business for 17 years. How? Like, what's the secret behind that? And the literal actual secret is consistency, showing up for that business, being willing to take on clients, telling people, yeah, this is what I do. Here's how we can connect. Um, yeah, it's literally been consistency the whole time.
It's interesting because I know like a lot of creative folks, because I have worked with quite a few authors, they tend to look at the creative process is just that, and they don't see it as a business, which means they can run into a lot of the limiting beliefs and the barriers, and it can become a bit of a vicious cycle for them. And the
Totally.
way I see it is that, um, it really comes down to also what your goals are.
Mm-hmm.
If you are satisfied with just putting something out there into the world, and you know that it's out there, and people are telling you how it's impacted them, and that's all you want out of it, then that's great. But if it's something that you actually want to continue to make an impact with, maybe you want to make, a bit of money off of it, and you want to continue to get it in front of audiences, then you really have to shift your perspective on, it's not even, it is, and the business terminology is always going to be marketing and sales and public relations and all that stuff. But that's the reason why I talk to my clients about it being storytelling and relationship building, because
Right.
ultimately those are the things that are going to get you in front of the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a product on sale or putting a service on sale is only ever going to get you so far,
Right.
right? You may have somebody buy it, which is great. You're earning a bit of money, but do you actually have a relationship with that person,
Right.
right? How can you roll your products, your services, your projects, what it is that you do organically into your story and organically into the relationships that you're building, so that it just feels like an extension of who you are and what you bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because at the end of the day, the other thing we have to recognize is that your products and services and products are not going to be for everybody.
Right. Yep.
So expecting that everybody's going to jump on it just because you have a sale going isn't realistic, right? It's really about, where are my people? Where are
Mm-hmm.
they hanging out? How can I continue to talk to them? And how can I build these relationships for the long-term picture of where I want my business to go?
Right. Oh, I love that so much. Yes. Yes to all of that. Yes to all of that. I love that. Okay, so I have one more question before we wrap things up, and this is my favorite question to ask. If you were a kitchen gadget or utensil, what would you be and why?
I love this question. It's fantastic. It's also because I love cooking and I love baking. I would say I'd probably be a hand mixer,
Nice. I
because a
love
hand
that.
mixer is tenacious, a hand mixer is versatile, and a hand mixer can take on every project, from, baking a batch of muffins to making taco filling, right?
Yeah.
So I think it really fits my personality on just being able to be tenacious when it comes to the projects and the clients that come my way, and being versatile and finding ways to get the results that you want. And I
Hmm.
also use my hand mixer quite a bit myself, so I think it fits.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, Lillian, thank you so much for being here. It's been such an honor to be able to interview you, hear some of your stories. Let everyone know how they can connect with you. And if you have a freebie, I'll drop all the links below. But for anyone who's listening, if they want to go find you now, how can they connect with you?
They can absolutely follow me on Instagram at Lilian Sue, copywriter PR, all one word. I'm on there 5 days a week sharing strategic PR tips and that. And to that end, they can also pick up my free PR Power Play workbook on my website. That's in retrospect writing services.com/workbook. And this workbook will give them the tools, the resources, and the prompts that they need to do everything from recognizing their limiting beliefs to building a strong mindset, brainstorming their goals, and helping them really unlock the superpowers within their own stories to really celebrate, embrace, and champion their own personal and professional lived experiences, because that's really what makes them an expert in what they do.
Cool. Oh my gosh, that's I feel like I want to go download that. That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been so great to interview you. And for everyone who is listening, make sure you like, share, subscribe, all the things. If you resonated with this episode, please feel free to screenshot it, tag me on social medias, or slide right into my DMs. I love to hear from you all. Wow, what a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.